Hey guys, this is Josh from Upright Health. We're going to talk about overhead shoulder mobility, and we're going to give you a couple strategies and exercises that you can use to help facilitate better overhead movement. The issue is that we sometimes see that when people are going to do things overhead, let's say just getting into a cupboard, what happens is our shoulder and rib cage is kind of glued together and we don't get true movement of the shoulder joint. We actually are just extending the spine to move our arm up overhead, okay? So what can happen from this is that now our shoulder isn't truly having the range of motion that it should have. It's kind of stuck, and a lot of the time this can result in impingement feelings and shoulder pain, okay? And just not to mention that you're not going to be able to produce as much force and perform as well if you are doing something like an overhead press with a dumbbell or a barbell. So we're going to go over two different exercises that you can do to facilitate better movement here and to practice your shoulder flexion, this overhead shoulder mobility. Let's get to it. So the first exercise is a hook lying pullover. So we're going to get down into that hook lying position, which is going to look like me on my back, my knees up, my feet flat on the ground, okay? Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're just going to bring our arms up in the air, hands right above the chest here, right? And we're going to prioritize keeping this rib cage down, keeping lower back flat to the ground, because we know that's our problem with letting that rib cage flare up too much. Now we're going to make sure to keep tension here, to keep my rib cage down, and we're going to bring my arms up overhead into the shoulder flexed position, okay? Now, if we can get our thumbs down to the ground here, we're doing pretty well, all right? But chances are you may get to somewhere around here, and to get the rest of the motion here, to get my arms down, you're going to have to let that lower back come up, flare these ribs. Now, we do not want to do that. We just want to work in the range of motion that we have. So let's say that's right here. Any farther, my lower back would come up. I'm just going to work this range here, okay? This is a very easy exercise, but it can have very high benefits just to rewire your system to be able to disassociate the shoulder moving to the rib cage moving, okay? Now, over time, you keep practicing this, and you might be able to get the thumbs down to the ground here, okay? Now, to take this a step further is we can straighten out the legs. Now, straightening out the legs is going to make it harder to keep my pelvis under me, to keep my rib cage down, okay? Because when my legs are bent, that automatically gives me a little posterior tilt. So to make this harder, I straighten out my legs, and we do the same thing, okay? Right here, lower back is staying flat, and we're working into this overhead position, okay? So what's next is we are going to move into a quadruped position. So I'm going to get down, my hands are right under my shoulders and my knees are right under my hips, okay? Now from here, all we're going to do is a quadruped shoulder flexion, all right? So now we're going to prioritize some tension in the stomach. My rib cage is neutral. I'm not letting myself dump into anterior pelvic tilt here and too much extension in the back. And same thing, I'm going to work my shoulder up to the end range of motion. I'm going to point my thumb up to start. And you can mess around with doing it in other positions, but I recommend using that thumb up method to start here, okay? So now we're just practicing shoulder flexion in a different position, but a position that's low intensity and easy for me to keep a stable core and not let my rib cage flare up. Okay, if you are having issues with that, go ahead and just sit your hips back to your heels more. This is going to kind of lock in my lumbar spine and my pelvis. And now my torso is a little bit more angled up because I'm more in this frog position, but now I can do that same thing, work on this shoulder flexion. All right. So those are 2 exercises to practice if you are having trouble with your shoulder flexion and overhead mobility. Let us know if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And remember, pain sucks, life shouldn't.